Well, it's Christ the King Sunday, the last Sunday of the church year. And our lectioners have made it pretty clear that what they want us to focus on today is the crucifixion, especially as it occurs in Luke. No breezing past it to the resurrection, no sliding around it to Easter. Today, it's the crucifixion and nothing but the crucifixion. So, okay, let's talk about the crucifixion. Here's something that strikes me about the crucifixion. From our standpoint, a couple of millennia later, we tend to treat the way Jesus died as special or extraordinary in some way. After all, his is the only crucifixion in history that we recount or even know anything about. Well, of course, he's Jesus. So the trauma of his death and its relationship to the mystery of the resurrection attract our close attention. As a result, we call it the crucifixion, as if there were only ever one. And we quickly forget that in Jesus's first century world, this was actually a common punishment doled out by Rome to make an example of criminals who threatened the established order. People were killed this way all the time. And in fact, Luke's account today underlines this point. As preacher Fred Craddock has observed, Luke provides almost no details about the crucifixion because why explain something so commonplace that everybody knows how it works? Not only that, but he crowds the stage of Jesus's execution with two other criminals to his left and to his right. Both these people and many more like them underwent the very same agony, the very same slow loss of life that we tend to think of as unique to Jesus. Now, don't get me wrong. Crucifixion was an unconscionably cruel way to treat someone. If it were also as unusual as we want to believe, that would at least say something positive about human restraint. But when you get right down to it, what's striking about Jesus's crucifixion is not how special it was, but how ordinary. And that ordinariness goes to the heart of what makes it so tragic. We call this kind of treatment inhuman, but the real problem is that it is deeply human. The real problem is that cruelty seems woven into our DNA as it has been practiced with sickening variety by millions of ordinary people against millions of other ordinary people down through the ages. So crucifixion is part of the common social landscape of first century Palestine. As an event in and of itself, it's unremarkable and therefore partakes of what political theorist Hannah Arendt called the banality of evil. But if that's true, what makes Jesus's death worth retelling? Why not skip straight to the empty tomb and avoid lingering over this moment as Luke does? What's so kingly about Jesus's crucifixion? Is there anything about this death as a death that is special in some way? I think the answer is yes, there is. For Luke, one of the things that makes this crucifixion special is Jesus's line, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." See, the power to be cruel is unremarkable. Anyone can be cruel. And in fact, almost everyone in this scene is, from the soldiers to the temple leaders to one of the crucified criminals who, even in his own dying hour, piles on with everyone else in mocking Jesus. Cruelty is ordinary, but forgiveness is extraordinary. Forgiveness is miraculous. Forgiveness is of God. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. This line in today's gospel reminds me of a film I showed in a class I taught about forgiveness some years back. One segment of the film told the story of a man named Azim Khamisa, whose 20-year-old son, Tariq, was delivering pizzas one day when a 14-year-old murdered him, shot to death over a pizza. And yet, Khamisa didn't seek revenge on the murderer. On the advice of a spiritual mentor who recommended that he perform a good deed, Khamisa created a foundation in Tariq's name, whose purpose was to try to prevent kids from killing other kids. And then he did a remarkable thing. He reached out to the murderer's grandfather and guardian, a man named Plus Felix, who had been raising the boy since he was young, and asked Felix to help his foundation do this work. Why? Because, he said, from the onset, I saw that there were victims on both ends of the gun. My son, a victim of his assailant, and that assailant, a victim of society. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Khamisa and Felix became best friends. They started going to schools to talk about the power of forgiveness. Each time they went, someone would introduce them this way. This man's grandson killed this man's son. When that introduction occurs, Khamisa said, it is the first time in their young lives that these students actually see an alternative to violence. Mostly what they see in our culture is an eye for an eye. So yes, cruelty is banal. Cruelty is ordinary and unremarkable, but forgiveness is extraordinary. This man's grandson killed this man's son. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Amen.